Good evening. Happy Thursday. It's almost the weekend. And we want to welcome you to Focus on the Family's Facebook Live show. Today, we're going to talk about boys to men across the generations. And, as usual, we always try to invite a couple of generations of guests to come on board. And today, we are so privileged to have father and son. First, let me introduce the dad. That is Christopher. Christopher Tan is actually CEO of Providend Ltd, Singapore's first fee-only comprehensive wealth advisory firm. Okay, I'm not really very sure what all that means, but what we're interested in is that he is a family man. He's actually a certified coach, a certified financial planner, and he was formerly an SAF Army officer, as I understand it. He's quite passionate about his time in national service where he served has served with the Army for 31 years, only stepped down this year in March. Yeah, and he's been married for 26 years and has two children. Actually, I know Christopher as the CPF man because he's come and help to give talks to our staff team about how to properly take care of your money. But other than that, the other important person that we have with us this evening is his son Thaddeus. So Thaddeus is his elder. And Thaddeus is 23 this year, doing his final year at NTU in accountancy, and he serves his national service with the Singapore Police Force, and he also plays floorball for the national team. Okay, so we are gonna jump straight into the conversation about how to raise boys into strong men. But maybe if I can get some kind of feel of who's out there tonight. If you are a parent of a son, could you just I don't know, send us a reaction wave? If you have a son in your home. Hello, hi Edwin. Hi Martin. Everyone saying hi to our guests. No one says hi to me. Okay, anyway. Okay, we have our chat function, and of course, along the way, please feel free to put in your comments, your questions, and we can direct them to our guests at any time. And so, I'm just gonna jump straight in by introducing a little bit about the topic and getting both Christopher and Thaddeus to share a little bit about themselves. But tonight we want to talk about young men, as they come into adulthood in this day and age. They're really faced with a very unique set of cultural challenges. I know we are in the days of COVID, and that in itself is a challenge. But the workplace is changing, digitizing, different work-life norms. We, of course, economically, we may be maybe more well off than previous generations, but it's also a more complex world and to some extent kind of unstable. And with alongside all this, cultural expectations with regards to gender roles that may have changed. And even expectations of how we should parent our children in those gender roles, right? And so today, as we talk about raising strong sons, I'm just going to first, even as I welcome Chris and Thaddeus tonight, I'm going to just have you, as you introduce yourself, give your take on what does it mean for you to, when you hear the word strong man. Maybe Chris go first.
Okay, so I think when it comes to the word strong, a few factors. I think one would be, we'll talk about holistically strong. Firstly, will be being mentally strong. And by that, I mean having a strong mind. And that is about being resilient. That's about having that determination and having that perseverance. The second area that I can think of is about being emotionally strong. And to be emotionally strong is not so much about having that ability to control your emotions, because you are a human being and we have emotions, but it's more about how we respond to those emotions that are more important. And the third area probably will be spiritually strong. If you have a faith, then it's about having a strong faith. And of course, physically strong is about being physically healthy and physically fit. And last but not least, I think it's about having strong values, that conviction, that fundamental beliefs that motivates you in the things that you do. So, of course, you'll be perfect if you can be strong in all 5 areas. But we all know it's it's not easy to be strong in all these areas.
Right. I was like waiting for you to talk about the physically strong, because I think sometimes we do know that for maybe young men, right, they go through perhaps, I don't know, a stage where before the pot bellies appear, maybe where they just want to look buff and they spend a lot of time in the gym, maybe. That
Yeah.
is, I know, how would you define it? Is that the same for your generation?
I think there's a lot of value in seeing how strong nowadays. It's more towards the mental side of things, the emotional as well, like what my dad has mentioned. But for me, I think there's a fair number of people in my generation nowadays that places quite an emphasis on the physical aspect of it as well. So nowadays, especially with the circuit breaker, I can see a lot of my friends on Instagram just sharing how they are so sad that the gyms are closed. Where are they going to find places to actually work out and to just maintain that nice body that they have? Yes, correct. So I think for me, the main thing, what strength means to me as a man, as a male, is the mental side of things and the emotional side of things as well. Like what my dad said, mental resilience, and for the emotional is how we can deal with them by our way of responding to the emotional setbacks that may come along the way.
One of our Facebook friends said that he grew up learning from his parents that strong men means that boys mustn't cry. I mean, I don't know, did either of you grow up with that kind of understanding, perception of what it means to be a strong man?
I think that's very traditional thinking, and I say that not in a bad way. I mean, for people of my generation, right? I mean, I'm born in the 70s, and I think that somehow is that belief that if you're a man, you cannot cry. And that's also influenced a lot by the movies that we watch, especially all those war movies, the Chinese war movies, the men can only bleed but cannot shed a tear. So I think that's the kind of thinking. But again, as I was saying just now, right, that being emotionally strong is not about resisting these emotions, because we are human beings and we naturally have those emotions. When we are angry, we are just angry. I mean, sometimes people tell you, don't be angry, but how do you not be angry? How do you not be sad? Of course, people say it out of a good intent. They try and comfort you. Hey, don't be sad. Hey, don't be angry. But you can't control these emotions. They come just naturally. If you're angry, you're just angry. If you're sad, somebody at home passed on, you cry, and things like that. But it's at the end of the day, being emotionally strong is how do you respond to these emotions? What do you do with it? I mean, you can be angry, but does that mean that we go around and then we smash things up? We go and beat people up. So being emotionally strong is not about and we can't cry. I think it's okay, but then how do you respond? How do you at the end of the day make use of these emotions for better things?
Thaddeus, are you growing up in like a totally different world? Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess Chris, did you ever see your dad cry? Or, I mean,
Never.
Never.
Yeah,
Thaddeus, have you ever seen your dad cry or the older man in your life cry?
To be honest, maybe because this during their generation they were brought up this way. So in that sense, I've never seen most of the uncles I know in my life really cry. But the way they process their emotions can take a different way, right? So sometimes I understand that they're down. I understand that they are not feeling the best. Maybe they it's just their approach towards how they feel and how they deal with the problems and the emotions, setbacks that they face. Yeah.
Research shows that, of course, fathers play a very key and unique role in children's upbringing, but particularly as we're talking about raising sons to become strong men, boys to men, right? It's always said that, a large part of that identity formation, or even transmitting what it means to be a man and manhood, that introduction is best given by dad. Yeah, so maybe Chris, you could share, or Thaddeus, how was your experience, being brought up into manhood by your dad versus maybe your mom?
Okay. Yeah. So that's a very interesting question and a very very tough one, especially. I think the difference between my dad and my mom, definitely. Let's start with my mom first. My mom will definitely play the more nurturing role, for sure. Different parents have different roles to play. So for my dad, especially, it's more towards leading the family. And everything that I'm learning from the both of them is actually modeled through what they're actually teaching their children. Like for me and my sister. So what I mean by this is, like, for example, my dad. When it comes to what I'm learning from him, I actually learn how to lead the family, be the head of the household. Every day I wake up, I see him without fear actually waking up very early, going to work, and actually coming back very, very late on certain days as well. And what I learned from this is that as the head of the household, it's really up to us to feed our family, you know. Whereas for my mom, it's more as a housewife, she's there for the family in times of need. She focuses on the different aspects of our family, more towards the household aspect of things. Yeah.
Would you agree, Chris? I mean, but are these like roles that like you and your wife kind of delineated? Like, okay, so you're the mom, so you do this. I'm the dad, so I do that.
I don't think we really sit down and talk about it. And again, whatever I'm going to share here might not necessarily be right and might not necessarily be appropriate for parents who are listening in. I think for Thaddeus and me, we're just sharing authentically what happens at home. Right? I mean, my wife and me, we never really sit down and say, look, these are your roles and these are my roles. And the way we have been brought up, being in our generation is that the man, we have to take care of the family. The man usually is the disciplinarian, and they discipline the big things. The mother discipline the small things, right? So on a daily basis, the mother is always the one that nags at the children about how to keep yourself clean, tidy up your room, all these things, right? And the father usually, okay, I'll speak for myself, lah. I don't get myself bothered with all these things, lah. Yeah, but I think my children knows that when I sit them down and tell them something serious, usually it would be the big things. And for me, I usually don't say it many times. I will say it once. And because I don't say it often, they know that when I have to sit them down and talk to them, then it is something serious already.
Serious, yeah.
And the way I brought up, especially for Thaddeus, right, because of my NS experience, I don't really have a fatherly figure when I was young that I can learn from, because my father was a bus driver and he was very busy himself. And in those days, bus driver, when you wake up, you don't see your father anymore. He comes back home and you're asleep because, the last bus they sent to the depot. So I actually don't see my father very often at all. And so I learned about being a man through NS. I learned about leadership through NS. I learned about what it means to be a man from NS. So, and Thaddeus will remember that, like, in those days when he was young, and when I am disciplining him, I make him stand in front of me in a Senang diri position. Because that's how we were being disciplined and talked to in the army, right? You don't move. And he will remember that when I talk to him, if he fidgets a bit, I get very upset. I'll tell him that, stop moving, because that's how we were taught, in the army. You don't move, like, you stand, and when your senior officers talk to you, you don't move, lah. So that's that, lah. But of course the mother is a lot more is different, lah. Yeah, the upbringing is quite different. But well, it's teamwork, right? How our kids, they are being brought up is really teamwork between the mother and the father, lah. But as I guess when the son starts to grow older, the fatherly role becomes a lot more important, because they are now into manhood. They will have their girlfriends and they will get married. They need to learn from the father how to handle these things, lah.
How to handle women.
How to handle two women.
Two women.
one the mother and the other one the girlfriend, right?
Okay.
Because there's always this triangle. There's because I mean, your mother has you as your only son, and then now your mother is witnessing you having another girl. How do you balance those emotions? Yeah, so they got to learn from the father, lah.
That's right. Okay, that is, is it quite similar for you? I mean, like, or because your dad seems to have been more present than what he experienced from his dad, i.e., your grandfather. Would you say that NS kind of played a lesser role, maybe, or it actually sounded like maybe your dad prepared you for NS like from young?
I mean, yeah, definitely since young, he has always mentioned about his NS experience. So that has, in a sense, got me really excited about NS as well. But to answer your question, I think there's a balance between both NS and his upbringing. Firstly, because before even going to NS, I've learned a lot from him. How to journey into and transit into manhood. But the NS aspect of things is when I actually mature, both emotionally and mentally. So going into NS, that's when I actually managed to become more mature and to deal with the situations that will come my way, coupled with the teachings that he has taught me growing up as a boy. Yeah.
That's interesting, because I think there have been recently some criticisms about NS teaching toxic masculinity, and I think the last thing we would think, hearing that, is that NS can actually teach you how to be more emotionally mature as a man. I don't know. Actually, how would you define that, Thaddeus? Like, what does it mean to be emotionally mature? Because I mean, we have some of our Facebook comments, that talks about how, and I suppose this is how we tend to, maybe a little bit of stereotype, I'm not sure, but we tend to view that guys would hardly talk about their emotions or their feelings. I mean, that's emotional, and Chris, you did mention, about the need to not deny that you have feelings, but how to best manage them. So is that something that NS also kind of managed to teach you, Thaddeus?
Yeah, I think definitely, because NS, for me, NS, my whole experience was with a group of guys, right? There were no females at all. And sometimes you get whacked by some of the higher ups, right? We call it FIs during my NS experience. The FIs are our high ups and the ones that are in charge of us. So, I mean, the only people we could turn to were one another, right? We call it squad mates, because I was from the police force. I didn't go to SAF. Yeah, so the only way we could get out of it was to suffer through it together, get through it together. And if we are feeling down or just not feeling the best, the only thing we could do to make ourselves feel better would be probably to engage in conversation with our friends we had in the bunk, right? There was no one else we could turn to. So I think that through NS, that really helped me as an individual learn more about sharing my feelings, and not just sharing my feelings, but also listening to what other guys are feeling as well, and how you can journey together with him on a friend level. Yeah.
That's so interesting. I mean, if you read the comments that's sometimes out there in the public space, you wouldn't have thought that, NS can do that for you as in inducting you into manhood. Chris, I understand you had like a story about your NS, maybe not your NS experience, but Thaddeus' NS experience.
Yeah. So like Ted say, right? I mean, I've been talking to him about NS since young, and that's because of my very strong belief in national service. I believe in national service a lot because I believe in this whole idea of defending our own country, and secondly, I always wanted to serve NS with my son. I even had this grand idea of wearing my green uniform, during his passing out parade, and wear uniform and celebrate with him. And I still remember, I don't know whether Terence remember, when he was young, he saw my SAF officer sword, and he was very interested, and he asked me about it. He wanted me to open up, touch it, and all that. And I told him, you go and earn your own sword, because being in OCS had such positive impact on me that I wanted him very much to go to officer cadet school. And so I talked to him a lot about NS, about why NS is good. And I talked to him about, you have to, go to OCS, and all that. so much so that I think that created an expectation. Yeah, so the story was that Thaddeus was actually asked to go for commando selection, and he went, but he was a bit torn because he wasn't sure whether he should go for commandos or not. Because if you go to commandos, the chance of going to OCS would be lower, like it's harder there, right? So anyway, he went for the selection, and he didn't get selected for commandos. And then, we waited for his enlistment letter for a long time. A lot of his friends has gotten the enlistment letter, but he didn't, and we're wondering why he didn't. Then one day I remembered that, I was actually in a meeting with my colleagues and all that. And then my wife texted me and said that, hey, CNPB sent a letter already. Shall we open up? Because there were two letters, one to the son and the other one to the parent, to invite them for the enlistment. Yeah, so I told my wife, open up. So my wife opened it up. And then, of course, she doesn't understand all this lingo. And she took a picture and she sent to me. I was in the middle of a meeting. And then the letter said, Thaddeus was posted to HTA, right? And of course, a lot of people don't know what HTA stands for. Of course, I knew it was Home Team Academy. That means as Singapore Police Force. And I remember in the meeting, I was like, what? Why is he posted to HTA, Home Team Academy? Because all this while I was thinking, even his conversation and my conversation was all about going into the army, right? Going for BMT, and all that. And I think he was very disappointed. He was very frustrated. I was very disappointed myself. So much so that even when he was, I don't think he knows this story. I always wanted to wear like I said, my uniform and go passing out with him, right? When he passed out for his basic police training, I didn't wear my uniform. I was actually very upset with myself. I was very upset with the organization. I didn't wear . Yeah, but and I think he was quite affected as well, because I think maybe, you can ask him that question later. He probably felt like, am I not meeting my dad's expectation, because he always wanted me to go to OCS, right? Yeah, and but when he went to police force, subsequently he was posted to Geylang NPC, Neighborhood Police Center, and each time when he comes back, he shares his story of what he does, in his police work. They were actually real work, much more real than what we do in NS, using planks and running up and down the hill, in exercise. But the work that the NS police people do, they are real work, dangerous work. They go undercover, they go raid places, they go plain clothes. He had to carry dead bodies or things like that. Real work. And
just like the movies.
It's real. It's not fake. It's not an exercise. It's real, right? And at that point in time, to me, I felt that actually going to the police force is actually really good for him, right? And so, cut a whole long story short, when he went for his ORD ceremony, he had this ORD ceremony. I decided that I will wear my uniform, because that has always been my dream, to wear uniform together with my son, right? And so he didn't know that I was going to wear uniform. Then when I went for his ORD parade or his ceremony, I actually wore my uniform in, and he was telling me his friend thought I was some crazy siao on NS regular, or don't know what, and only to find that I was an NS man wearing my uniform. I was the only dumb guy that wore uniform. But
man who really loves his country.
I do love my country a lot. But I share this story because I feel that sometimes as parents, we impose certain expectation on our children. Some parents could be academic, and it's because of the journey that we have taken. For me, it was never academic. I never pressure my children at all when it comes to studies. But unknown to me, actually, I had an expectation in the area of national service, and it's not good, because sometimes we look at our children like our trophies. We want them to achieve certain things because of ourselves, not for them. But they have their own journey, they have their own legacy, they excel in their own way. And for Thaddeus, maybe it's not national service. For him, he served in other areas. He plays floorball for Singapore, and he served Singapore in that. I would have. My life I never ever reached that standard of doing anything like sports or games at a national level.
Thaddeus, I think our Facebook viewers would be so keen to hear your side of the story. I mean, did you know all this was going on with your dad? And how did you feel also, regards to his expectations for your NS journey? And in fact, actually, I think we do have a photo of both of you on at your ORD ceremony, I think. Okay. And anyways, yeah, oh, there you go. There's you go on screen. Yeah. Okay, so that's the very on dad. Yeah, so Thaddeus, your side of the story, what was it like?
Yeah, okay, so basically maybe I'll touch on the part whereby I got my enlistment letter as well. So previously before that, everything was actually I only had one aim, which was to go SAF and eventually become an officer as well. That was part yeah, so after I got my enlistment letter and I found out that I was enlisting to HTA, actually I was also quite surprised, and I really didn't know what HTA was until the police leaflet fell out. So I saw like some boys in the police uniform, and I was just thinking it can't be right. Maybe they just send these brochures from the SAF, from the police, and from every other organization that you can find out there, just as an introduction to NS. But that was the only leaflet that fell out. And then I was like, oh man, I'm not going to SAF. And actually, very interestingly, I just felt so defeated at that point in time. And I remember actually running to my room and the morale was at an all-time low. That period was the period where I was studying for my examinations for JC. But I just didn't feel like doing anything. And I actually remember crying and just crying in front of my mom at home. Yeah, I just went to my room, closed the door, cried for a good 10 minutes or so, and then just kept on complaining. Yeah.
Real man
so
do cry. Do you think that your disappointment was large part, because your dad had built up such expectations for you with regards to NS?
I think the expectations will be one thing, definitely. But yet, on the other hand, it was growing up with the idea that, okay, maybe OCS was the best way, the best path for me. OCS was kind of very, very glorified, and that made me want to go towards that path as well. It just seems like people who are deserving and those who are the best actually made it to OCS, and who doesn't want to be the best, right? So that was my idea at that time. The only way to excel and be the best is to go to OCS. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this actually raises a very interesting observation about Asian dads, that sometimes, I don't know, maybe unintentionally, but the expectations we have on our kids, and particularly with regards to our sons, they tend to take those expectations very seriously, right? And for better or for worse. Yeah. And not sure, so Chris, having gone through that experience, what was your takeaway from it, and what would you say to other parents, with regards to especially other dads? Yeah.
I think being human, we cannot help but have certain expectation on our children, especially like I say, based on the journey we have come through, right? So if you are very scholarly and academically you are very bright, you will have certain expectation on your children. That's just natural. For me, I did well in the army and I have certain expectation. But again, it's how we respond to those expectations. I think for me, I don't want to preach or I don't want to be judgmental, but for me, my main takeaway is that I need to be very careful, because these expectations are unfair for our children, because they are wired differently. We should not expect them to have the same journey as us. They excel in their own way, right? And I've said that just now. I've got to be very careful in reminding myself that my children, they are not my trophies. Unfortunately, I have got friends, my NS friends, all their kids somehow made it to OCS, right? And then when we come together and they will all share, my son went to this batch of officer cadet, and all that. And if I'm not careful, I will feel like I've lost out.
Yeah,
Right.
ouch.
Yeah. So, but that's wrong thinking, really, right? Because otherwise, we are basking in the glory of our children, and I think, like I said, I think that's wrong. Like I think we gotta, for me, like I gotta watch myself and not fall into that trap, lah. Yeah.
We have one Facebook viewer who's asked this question, like for those with difficult relations with your fathers. I mean, for you, Chris, you've had in a way that moment of revelation or enlightenment, regards to your role as a dad and your fathering journey. But for those who have difficulty relating to their dads, like how can they find some kind of resolution and closure? How can they move on, and how can they, despite that, still be good dads to their sons?
I don't know, because I really don't know, no, Joanna. But I think that we probably need to learn not to be too hard on ourselves, because sometimes I think we are a lot harder to ourselves than our children are. Actually, when we talk to our children, they don't take those feelings too seriously, lah. Right? But it is us whom we cannot forgive ourselves. Yeah. So I mean, we all fail, and even as I was preparing for this, those questions are very difficult questions, because a lot of things that you ask, right, I don't do. But I mean, how to, right? Every aspect. I'm not the perfect dad whereby I know there are some parents, every week they spend time with their children. They take each one of them out. They have their own date night. I don't, because of my work and all that. I don't. But that doesn't mean that I cannot still be a good father as best as I can.
Thaddeus, what is it that your dad has done for you that you would say that's really given you a really good perspective, good foundation, good grounding as to what it means to really grow up and be a strong man?
Okay, I think since young, ever since I was born, I guess, he has always repeated this phrase of his, which was just try your best and don't give up. And I think that has stuck with me throughout these years. So even as I'm growing up, whatever failures and setbacks that I face, somehow it's just stuck in my head, and this has helped me to eventually get through and get past these obstacles that I face. So in that sense, strong, being resilient, right? Secondly, I think it's also how he is the father of our family, right? How he acts around both my sister and my mother, and all these small things that he does actually helps me to learn that a strong man doesn't have to appear somebody that looks cool, somebody that's very unapproachable, right? I think some of us might have this misconception that strong men is people who want to come to you instead of you first approaching them. So I think what I learned from him is that actually it's just strong men just have to be men who are true to themselves, serve the community around them, serve the family, and that has really impacted the way I think and the way I behave and the way I grew up throughout my years as a boy to a man eventually. Yeah.
Wow.
Joanna, the funny thing is I wrote that mantra on my note, and I remember the try your best and don't give up. He was very young. I think he was probably 3 or 4 years old, and he was swimming. I was teaching him how to swim, actually, which was a bad idea, really. But
why? What happened?
because subsequently, when he went into swimming, right, from a proper coach, right, they have to undo everything that I taught him,
Oh,
all the wrong stuff. Yeah, but I remember that he was very young and he knew how to swim. And I threw him at one end of the pool. It's a full size, pool, and he was struggling. And I kept repeating to him, "Try your best, don't give up. Try your best, don't give up." And that mantra, sort of, I repeated it to him throughout his life when he was young, and somehow that brainwashing works because he can remember until now.
It'll be interesting to ask your second one, your daughter, right, whether she carries that same mantra with her. I don't know. Was it something you said to her?
No. Somehow, my second one is a girl. Yeah, the way I think it's traditional thinking. I have a lot more expectation on my son because I see him as a man, and he ultimately will have to lead his family. And because of that, I think I'm a lot stricter with him, right? Because of that expectation. With the daughter, it's just a different way of treatment. Sometimes Thaddeus will complain that I'm stricter to him than with the sister. I seem to cut the sister a lot more slack than him. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's what parenting is, or rather what parents do, right? Because they have a lot more expectation. And it's not because I love the sister lesser, or it's not because I want the son to do better. It's just that I understand the burden of a man.
Wow.
The leadership burden of a man. It's not easy to be a man, to carry that burden of taking care of the family, earning an income, um, and so because of that, I'm a lot more stricter, I guess, with the son and with the daughter.
That is, how does that make you feel like hearing this from your dad? Or has he said this to you before?
Yeah, it's happened way too often. I mean, there'll definitely be times whereby we have some disagreements, my sister and myself at home, and then the parents step in, right? And then the dad steps in. And then sometimes I'll just be like, oh man, I lost the fight, right? Like, why do you have to be so easy on her? And just sometimes as a human, you just don't feel very good about it, that the sister managed to get her way. And you, on the other hand, just, your parents are the ones scolding you, this and that. Yeah.
So now you hear, your dad's like rationale for doing that. Are you now feeling the heavy burden of what it means to be a man and lead a family in future?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, going back to ever since NS, I guess I've appreciated my family more, and by appreciating my family more, I've thought about what it would mean for me if I were to be a father in the future as well. So definitely, what he has taught me through his whatever he just mentioned will definitely impact me in the way I view what it means to lead my future family, and just be the head of the household. Yeah.
Chris, there is a question for you actually. Have there been times you felt inadequate as a dad, and how did you cope with that?
It's from Benjamin. I know him. Ben, why you ask such difficult question? Of course, no. There's never been a time I feel inadequate. It's rhetorical. Of course, all the time. Yeah, all the time. How did I cope? Actually, I don't think too much of it personally. Yeah, I mean, I just do within my ability, and I try not to feel guilty about it. Right? I mean, I don't spend enough time with my children. That's for sure. But thankfully, my wife makes up for it because she's a stay-at-home mom, and she's there for the children. And because of her, I think she has taught my children to be able to be real to their emotions, because the woman is a lot better. They're able to, talk to the kids and be real. But what my wife does is that she will tell me those big things that she feels that I need to get involved, and because of that, I'm able to come in to deal with those teachable moments. And this is something that I believe in. A lot of times busy professionals will say that it is not how much time you spend, but it's the quality. It's quality time. I'll tell you that I don't believe in this. There cannot be quality time if there is no quantity, because when the children is growing up, without that time spent, you will not be there in those teachable moments, lah. Because you cannot orchestrate those teachable moments, right? You say, I spend quality time 2 hours on a Saturday, and you try and orchestrate those teachable moments, but it doesn't work like that. So I believe in that. But at the same time, I want to say that because I'm an imperfect father, I don't spend enough quantity, enough time with my children. But that's made up by my wife, who is there, and she helps when she feels that this is the teachable moment. You have to go and deal with it. It's not the perfect way, but sometimes the teachable moments has to be dealt with at that point in time. It's not the perfect way, but at least I know of it, and I can actually sit down with the children to process it, lah. So that's, I don't know whether that answers Ben's question. Short answer is yes, I feel it all the time, but I don't think too much about it. I don't feel guilty. I just move on. I just keep trying.
But it's interesting that you have been there for the big moments, and you recognize that it is important to like be present for those moments. Actually, there's another question about whether there are situations where you should tell the child, instead of try your best and don't give up, but to actually say it's time to now give up or let go, versus holding on. Yeah, and maybe I know that the question is directed at you, Chris, but I'm just wondering, Thaddeus, have you ever wondered like when it is actually you have permission to give up, or to tell yourself that, okay, I think enough is enough, time to let go?
I mean, definitely, yeah, faced with it. And very, very recently as well. As just now you mentioned as well. I'm playing floorball for Singapore, right? And because I'm nearing the end of my studies with NTU, so I'm transitioning into the working lifestyle. So managing between both work and floorball is definitely a big question mark, right? Because if I were to continue with floorball, certain opportunities will naturally not be there anymore. For example, maybe if I'm thinking of trying to go overseas and work just for the experience, right? But yeah, I'm stuck with floorball. How am I supposed to do that? So this has always been a conversation topic at the dinner table. And this is something that I've always been seeking advice from both my dad and mom, but more so from my dad. And yeah, so there's always this part about how everything we do, there's a trade-off. And there has to come a point in time where I decide on my own when it is time to let go. So I don't think he's very caught up on just continue doing it until you just feel so overwhelmed that you decide to give up. But ultimately, there's a thinking process at the back end as well, as to manage between both, and think logically as to what you want going into the future as well. Yeah.
Interesting. It sounds like even between father and son, there are some of these like maybe hard conversations or topics that you need to address like man to man, versus you did mention that you also have those conversations with your mom, but more so your dad.
Yeah.
And that's quite interesting. I just want to ask this question because it's coming from our Facebook audience. To Thaddeus, what's one thing or one moment that you always remember your dad for, and why?
I think it's his resilience and his hard work. Yeah, definitely. I mean, hearing stories and just knowing how he has um, eventually managed to be where he is today. Not saying that he's very great, but just being there.
Just say it's great.
Yeah, it's very inspirational, definitely, to see him put in so much hard work and effort, and it's something that has really inspired me to continue what he has been doing. Yeah.
I know we're running out of time, and maybe just to throw one last question to both of you, and maybe if you have any last thoughts to share as well, you can just chip in. So Chris, we are talking about raising boys to men across the generations. You did mention a little bit about your experience growing up, and just a very different lifestyle, right? Also different time your son is now growing up in to become a man. This one probably maybe directed a little bit at the moms, because you seem to have very good partnership here going with your wife, and how she gets you to be the man and the dad when you need to be. What advice or tips would you give to moms who perhaps wish that they had husbands who as involved as you, maybe especially like we talked about the NS experience. I, for one, at least for me, I have a son. I don't think I'll be able to prepare him for his NS experience. Yeah, so if I couldn't get my husband to do it, like how, what should we do as moms? Yeah. And maybe Thaddeus, like to perhaps the parents of the older generation. And as a young man who has really, it's very obvious that you have really come into your own. And what would you kind of wish to enlighten, the older generation about what it means to be a real man today, in this day and age? Yeah, whoever is ready to go first.
I'll go first. It's not really an advice because we are all different. Our marriages are different. Our spouse are different. So what works for me may not work for people who are out there. But I think the woman play a very important role at home, especially to the husband, because I think men, we have a lot of blind spots, especially men whom are very focused on their career. We have a lot of blind spots at home. And it doesn't mean that we don't care. Sometimes we are tired. There are a lot of battles to fight out there. And it's not an excuse, really. It's not easy, especially for men whom are in leadership positions out there. It's really tough. And there are men whom they really actually would like to do something for their family, but maybe because of the lack of time and they are tired, they can't do it. And also men, generally speaking, especially men in my generation, we are not able to talk about emotions as openly as we like with our children. And the mom can help, right? Because the mom can come in and try to start those conversations first and then bring the man in. The mom can continue to remind, or rather the wife can continue to remind the husbands on the things that the man may not have seen. I think that helps a lot. Again, like I say, I can't say it applies to everyone, because some men may say, no, please don't nag at me, because, after work, you're still nagging at me.
Yeah, I think the wives now are very happy. Like, oh, you're giving us permission and saying nagging is good.
Yeah, but I guess it's the posture and the approach on how that partnership works, right? It's like if you know that this is your husband's blind spot, then you play that role to support your husband and help him and remind him and tell him. Like for me, my wife is the one that tells me those teachable moments that I need to be there, right? She knows that I'm very busy, and she won't disturb me for the many small things. But when it comes to the big things that I really need to be involved with,
because you need to be dad.
yes. So and when she tells me that, I know it's important. Otherwise, she would have actually sorted it out on her own. Yeah, that's my own experience.
I can resonate with that. Thank you. Yes, Thaddeus, you have the last word.
Okay, yeah. I think for me, it's just to whether it's for the older men or for people of my generation, I think is to just be yourself and don't try to be somebody that you're not. Because if you're trying to be somebody that you're not, then you really wouldn't find your own fit, your own way of doing things, and there will never be, you'll never show your true identity at all. You'll never be the real man that you're called to be lah. Yeah, that's it.
Joanna, can I say this last piece, although it's not, I know it's running out of time. Yeah, because I feel there is a need to really encourage parents out there, and something that I believe in, and that is how our children turn out to be is not wholly dependent on what we do. I've seen parents done all the right things for their children, and the children didn't turn out the way they want them to be. I've seen parents whom have done a lot lesser, but in the end, the kids turn out very well. Now, it's not an excuse for parents not to do their best, right? But my point really is that, we do our best within our ability and our constraints. Don't feel guilty about it. And I mean, I believe in a God that will take care of the rest. And if you don't have a faith, then I'll say I believe in a divine order, right? That will take care of things. Now, this thinking is very important because when our children they do well, we won't become proud and say that it's because of the correct formula. That's why my kids turn out like that, and we go around telling other people about this particular formula.
True. Yes.
But when our kids don't turn out as well as we think they should, we don't have to blame ourselves for it because it's not just about our formula. Yeah. So, we just do our best, and we don't do so
And
well.
don't give up.
And don't give up. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, we're so happy to hear that because at Focus on Family, we too believe that there is no one formula to parenting, and we do recognize that our children are uniquely created. They're all differently wired, boys versus girls, right? And therefore the necessity also of mom and dad both playing that complementary role in raising our children. Yeah, and of course, particularly tonight we're talking about raising sons into strong men. So thank you so much. I want to first thank you both for just that very heartfelt sharing. And yeah, I mean, I don't know whether you have such deep conversations with each other, but definitely I feel that is really something that goes deep to the heart. It's not just an intellectual like, oh, this is great to do for parenting. Yeah, but it's good to have that insight and to hear also your lessons learned from just your journey through parenting or just growing up, right, with your dad. Before we end the show, I just want to highlight a few things to our Facebook viewers. We do today. Well, tonight we've been talking about masculinity in that sense, and basically talking about men. But we have actually at Focus on Family recently written a paper as our way of contributing to this year's SG celebration of women. And so, if you'd like to read out more on that, we can give you the link right now, and it's also up there on the screen. Yeah, do check that out. And if you want to hear a little bit more also about how NS can shape your parenting or vice versa, we do have also a podcast that goes deep into that. This is National Day month, right? So we're talking about loving our nation, how to impart that love for nation even to our children as a good family value. And last but not least, we also have a couple of public webinars coming up for parents who wish to address issues of mental health and our kids, how to build mental emotional resilience. I think we heard tonight about even being a strong man, that it does require mental and emotional strength. And if you want to know practically how to do that, please by means check out our webinars. So all the links are given there in our Facebook chat, and also of course have been flashed up on the screen. So with that, I just want to thank our guests, Chris, Thaddeus. Thank you so much. Thaddeus, I know we almost thought you might not make it because you're they're actually in different places. They live in the same home, but Thaddeus unfortunately has just been called up for on a quarantine order. So that's why they are in different places now. But we're glad that you could make it tonight. Thank you so much for sharing. Thanks for your time. And to our Facebook viewers, thanks so much for spending this evening with us. And just one more day to the weekend, and do spend time with your family, because as Chris shared, without quantity time, there's not going to be quality time. So good night.
Thank you.